Hi and welcome back to Today Review, and today we're going to be reviewing two items, specifically the Gundam marker and a panel line accent color. So this video is going to be kind of short. I just wanted to give you guys a quick, tutorial or tips onto what I've been coming across when doing Gundams as well. So let's go ahead and get started. So probably before working with Gundam markers, what I would always use was the uh, testors colors, and these of course you always see them at Hobby Lobby. You used to see them at Walmart, Kmart, and they're basically, you know, the most universal kind of little paints that you see for I guess model kits for the cars and stuff like that. So this is actually what I would use for Gundams, and I would use it with, you know, various dimensions of brushes for details. I even went and used air brushes and or air with them as well, and it worked really well. The only thing is that they dry up if you leave them open or unattended. They do tend to dry up pretty quick sometimes, depending on the usage as well. And they don't, although they do work really well on the actual plastic itself, sometimes it was very hard to maneuver through them. So I started going through Gundam markers, and now what I noticed is that there's some benefits and cons as well. So let me go ahead and share you a couple of things. So first off, when using a Gundam marker, you do really have to shake. I mean, I'm talking about shake it all the way. If not, what you end up seeing is as soon as you start pouring some of the liquid, let me see if I could. It's either a bit uneven, uncolored. I don't know if you could see right there, but it basically looks kind of faded. So you do have to make sure to shake it completely. And actually, I'd recommend doing it this way. That way no paint actually drips down. And then of course you push it in, and oh, there you go. It's a more solid color. It's a more fluent color. And unfortunately you can't really see it through the camera right now, but this side's actually more solid, a more unified color versus this one that's a bit diluted. So that's one thing that I did notice. Now here's what I did notice that might not be so great is that depending where you get your marker and maybe perhaps the age of it, it might not be the best option as well. So probably try and find where they sell them brand new, because I actually went to my local comic book store to buy the marker and the liner, and I noticed that one of the markers itself, as you could tell, wasn't perhaps maybe as new as I expected. So it really did kind of give me like an ugly finished texture instead of a full solid one. But after reviewing a couple of different other videos as well, it seems as though the panel works well for more of like smaller sections. Once you start enlarging it to much larger sections, that's where it either becomes an issue where the paint begins to spread out or it's uneven. But that's one thing that I recommend is try and find out, you know, the best, the newest markers as well, and make sure that they're not either old or used as well. And the other thing is also the tip. Make sure that it's actually properly placed, the chisel. So they do have two versions. They have the chisel and then they have the point. So make sure you get the correct one to do the correct job as well. And like I said, I went to my local comic book store to buy these, so I'm not sure, depending on if I would have bought them online, it would have been different quality, texture, and things like that. So that's one thing I noticed. Now, the other thing that I do want to mention is that it's always important to wash all the parts as well with just soap and water and let them air dry. Clean them out pretty well. The other thing is that when you're using the marker, make sure to have clean hands and non-oily hands, because what will happen is, as you could tell, these are colored and these are not. And I was touching them with my hands, and they weren't oily or anything, but you know, they, as you could tell, it became more of like a oil-based reflection instead of a solid one. So just make sure to have your hands, you know, dry as well when you're maneuvering through them. All right, so the other thing that I was going to review is basically the panel lining accent. With this one, it's also important to shake it. Okay, so I just shook it for a good, you know, 30 seconds. So one of the things that I've noticed is also it's always important to have some kind of, you know, bottom cover base, just in case the paint tends to spill or anything. But more importantly, what I did notice was that when you were using this version right here specifically, you have to be careful with the consistency of it as well. So early on I ended up doing these two panels, and as you can tell, they did pretty well. But I actually came up with a couple of different methods that I've already seen to work. So it's important when you have excess, just let the excess run down the rim, and it's a simple tap. It's nothing more. So what I do is I look for either the bit corner right here, there. So it's just a small tab, nothing bigger, and like I said, what I do is I start off right at the edge, right at the edge, so that the paint actually just goes further out. So with lines, if it's a much larger section, it's always important just to start right here and right here. Try and look for the biggest opening that you can within it. So in this case right here, since it's a more of a square type, I started right here at that corner and then at this corner so that it moves outside. When you're working with paint, oh, sorry. When you're working with paint, it is kind of the same format when it's already painted, but the cleanup version's a bit different. It's always important to have a lot of Q-tips in hand, but what I did notice was that you can actually make a bigger mess when using Q-tips with when the panels aren't painted, on my experience. So what I've noticed is that if you start smearing it too quickly and not let it dry enough, you'll end up causing an issue where it just becomes all smeared everywhere. So what I've noticed is that just let it dry out, tap it, with a little bit of water, and saliva doesn't work, just to let you know, and just scrub it around. Or what I've actually also noticed, what I did over here was just use my thumb, and I just went over the sections the panels that might have had a couple of excess, and really just rubbed it in there, and the paint ended up coming off. So as you could tell, there's a little thing right there. So all I do is, and there it is. It went out. So, there's that. But when you're working with paint, that's where, as soon as you start dipping it, as you could tell, I already have this panel a bit painted. And again, I started off right here at this edge and then at that corner. As soon as it goes on, that's where I recommend just don't smear it. Instead, just lightly place it in there so that it soaks up any excess paint. The reason is also because since this is also, the panel also contains a bit of thinner, it might take off the paint. So it's important that you don't really smear it off, just lightly dap it and withdraw it as well. So yeah, I just wanted to provide you with a quick video tutorial, tips, things like that. I'm currently working on Gundam right now that was gifted to me as well. So I thought that it's important to also showcase in case any of you have any questions. Best way to paint really depends on you. Like I said, I've used the Testo paints. I've used it with the airbrush. I've used, Sharpies, markers. Even with this one, it really is trial and error, and depending what exactly you like the best. Don't use watercolors. Trust me, don't use watercolors. Acrylic painting, similar to this, seem to work pretty well for larger panels. But each to themselves. So I hope you all have a great day, rest of the day as well. So send lots of love and kisses. You all be safe, and hope you enjoyed this small short video, and you all have a great one. Take care. Bye bye.